Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Tanvi Taneja, coming up in the next hour. Planned summit between Trump and Putin put on hold after Russia rejects ceasefire. Trump says don't want to have a wasted meeting.
No, I don't want to have a wasted meeting. I don't want to have a waste of time, so I'll see what happens.
US Vice President voices great optimism for Gaza truce on Israel visit. Remains of 2 more hostages handed over by Hamas. Identities confirmed by Israel's army. Japan's first woman Prime Minister prepares large economic stimulus to tackle inflation. Work like a horse. Sanae Takaichi rejects work-life balance in her first speech.
You will work like draft horses. I myself will throw away the very phrase work-life balance. I will work and work and work and keep on working.
And a major bus tragedy in Uganda as 2 buses collide on the Kampala-Gulu highway on Wednesday. 63 killed, several others injured. A planned summit between US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin was put on hold on Tuesday after Moscow's rejection of an immediate ceasefire in Ukraine. All this casts a cloud over negotiations. Trump had announced last week that he and Putin were to meet soon in Hungary to try to end the Ukraine crisis. But Putin has been unwilling to consider concessions and wants Ukraine to cede more territory before any ceasefire.
US President Donald Trump abruptly shelved a planned summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin due to Moscow's refusal to agree to an immediate ceasefire in Ukraine. He also cited fears of a wasted meeting, dimming hopes for swift negotiations to end the ongoing conflict.
No, I don't want to have a wasted meeting. I don't want to have a waste of time, so I'll see what happens. But we did all of these great deals, great peace deals. They're all peace deals, agreements, solid agreements, every one of them. But this one, and I said, go to the line of battle, the battlefield lines, and you pull back and you go home, and everybody takes some time off because you got 2 countries that are killing each other. 2 countries that are losing 5,000 to 7,000 soldiers a week. So we'll see what happens.
Following a heated White House meeting last week, President Donald Trump urged Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to surrender the eastern Donbas region. Zelensky was denied long-range Tomahawk missiles and left without progress. Zelensky said on Tuesday that Russia almost automatically became less interested in diplomacy due to the postponement of a decision by the US administration on Tomahawk missiles for Ukraine.
Натомість Росія знову робить все.
Russia is once again doing anything to avoid diplomacy. And as soon as the question of long-range weapons for us, for Ukraine moved away, Russia almost automatically became less interested in diplomacy.
Менш зацікавленою.
Trump, after a productive phone call, as he termed it, with Russia's Putin on October 16th, had touted the Budapest summit as a breakthrough, while their August Alaska meeting yielded no progress. Russia's dismissal of an immediate ceasefire demanding full Donbas control and Ukraine's neutrality derailed the momentum for the meeting. European leaders, including France's Emmanuel Macron, Italy's Giorgia Meloni, and Britain's Keir Starmer, had issued a joint statement on Tuesday, backing Trump's ceasefire call, but insisting on current front lines as the negotiation baseline without territorial losses for Kiev. Trump's personal diplomacy with Putin has frustrated allies who scramble to counter Moscow's obstinance. Bureau Report, DD India.
And to now understand where the Russia-Ukraine crisis is headed next, we are joined by Dr. Raju Kumar, School of International Studies, joining us from Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. Now, welcome, sir, to the program. President Putin has been demanding that Ukraine cede more territory before he agrees to a ceasefire. What exactly are Putin's territorial demands? Why is he insistent on them? And do they have any historical justification?
Thank you, Tanvi, for having me here. Let me clarify to your audience that the narrative that Russia wants more territory, that's slightly lopsided, because what Russia is looking for, there are 2-3 things. First, that Ukraine should recognize the territory that Russia has captured, and in a state, what Russia is also trying to negotiate. Russia is saying that we'll take the entire Donetsk region, and Russia would be willing to give Zaporizhia and Kherson back to Ukraine. Unfortunately, Ukrainian side is not willing to accept the territory that Russia has captured, especially the Donetsk that Russia is insisting. President Putin is solely focusing on just one aspect of the conflict, that is ceasefire. And Russia is not willing to agree for the ceasefire because of a number of reasons. First, because he does not, President Putin does not completely trust Trump, because Trump has been changing on every issue, right from Iran to Gaza to tariff, etc. So there is a lack of trust. Second, Russia believes that if ceasefire, Russia agrees for ceasefire without any kind of, what it calls root causes or the peace deal, then that might be used, the timeline might be used by Ukraine to rearm itself, because Ukraine at the moment is losing territory, very slow, but again, is in a very weak and vulnerable situation. And that's exactly the reason why Ukraine is looking for ceasefire. European countries are also looking for ceasefire. And Trump wants ceasefire so that he can show to the world and to his domestic constituency that he's the peacemaker, and he's also a claimant of so-called Nobel Prize. But unfortunately, Russia is not trusting the Western strategy. And Russia says that we'll agree for some kind of ceasefire only when there is a convergence of interest on the larger issue. What are the larger issues? One is what will happen to the territory that Russia has. Second, what will happen to the status of Ukraine vis-a-vis NATO? The West has to agree that Ukraine will not be given the membership of NATO. Third, Russia also insists that there should be no NATO forces or even European forces. NATO, in the sense that US is not willing to send the army, but some of the European countries are saying that they would be willing to send some army as a coalition of willing, etc., where most of the European countries, Britain, France, Germany, etc., they have agreed. So the core issues have not been resolved, and that's exactly the reason why Russia doesn't want to go just for the ceasefire.
Okay. Now, Russia has also been demanding Ukraine's neutrality in return for a ceasefire. What does the proposed neutrality mean in practical terms, and would Ukraine and Europe agree to it?
Yes, that's a very interesting question. Neutrality means that Ukraine will not be the member of NATO. And that has been the main reason for this conflict. Right from, if you see from Russian perspective, that has been the main cause. And the Western perspective is that Ukraine is an independent country, sovereign country. It can decide whatever membership it wants to. But Russia, because Russia says that NATO is a security organization. NATO and Soviet Union has a history of clash and history of tension in the Cold War period. So Ukraine, being a very close country ethnically, politically, and also socially, etc. So Ukraine should not become a member of NATO. And so neutrality essentially means that Ukraine should not become a member of NATO. And ideally, from Russian perspective, Ukraine should also not become the membership of European Union. But after the development, after the war, Russia is willing to agree to NATO, European Union's membership of this Ukraine, but Russia will never agree to Ukraine's membership to NATO. So neutrality means no membership and also no army of NATO in Ukraine, or not even European army without US, what do you call it.
Would you say that the inability so far of the US to supply Ukraine with Tomahawks may have hardened President Putin's stand on terms of a ceasefire?
I think that's the Western narrative. If you read most of the newspapers of West, Washington Post, New York Times, Guardian, etc., they are under the misconception that Putin agreed to the deal because of the Tomahawk missile. Tomahawk is a cruise missile. It's not easy to detect, and it can carry very destructive weapons, including nuclear weapons, and cannot be detected easily by S-400, which Russia has as a missile defense system. But unfortunately, that is not the case. Let me tell you, even if Ukraine is even Tomahawk missile. The kind of war which is happening, the advantage that Russia has will not change. It will lead to more destruction, let me tell you. If Tomahawk missile is used by Ukraine to target some of the refineries, etc. of Russia, Russia will retaliate with other weapons which are very, very destructive. And Russia might target civilian areas also in Kiev and other places of Ukraine, and maybe it might escalate to Europe also. So the Western narrative is that with Tomahawk, Russia will come under pressure. But so far, I know Russia, and I've been teaching on this subject for the last 20 years, I can tell you, Tomahawk will not make any difference except escalating the tension in the region.
So finally, at this point, do you see any early end to the fighting in Ukraine, or is the conflict likely to drag on?
For some time, conflict is likely to continue. In that area is winter, the entire area is frozen. So conflict can go with a very slower pace when it comes to capturing the territory, etc. But unless and until some kind of agreement happens, starting with the ceasefire, but also as Russia says that there has to be some long-term peace deal in which the core issue, the root causes have to be resolved. So unless until that is resolved, Russia has advantage and Russia is not going to stop the war.
Okay. We'll leave it here. Thank you very much, Dr. Raju Kumar, for joining us on DD India News Hour. We'll come back on the European perspective on the Russia-Ukraine conflict in just a bit. For now, let's give you more news from the US. President Donald Trump lit lamps at the White House on Tuesday to mark the festival of Diwali, celebrating the occasion with Indian-American members of his administration and other community figures. US President praised Prime Minister Narendra Modi, calling him a great person and a great friend. Key figures including FBI Director Akash Patel, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, joined the gathering to celebrate the Festival of Lights. A traditional brass 5-wick lamp stood on a flower-decked table in front of the Resolute desk as Trump read a message highlighting the spiritual Diwali. Trump said that the lamp symbolized the victory of light over darkness, knowledge over ignorance, and good over evil. Prime Minister Narendra Modi also reciprocated. He thanked US President Donald Trump for his Diwali wishes. He took to social media platform X and wrote, and I quote him here, "Thank you, President Trump, for your phone call and warm Diwali greetings. On this festival of lights, may our two great democracies continue to illuminate the world with hope and stand united against terrorism in all its forms." And DD India's Akshay Dongre joins us on the story now. Akshay, how old is the tradition of celebrating Diwali at the White House?
Well, Tanvi, the tradition of celebrating Diwali in the White House has started. It started under Barack Obama's administration. It has continued ever since. We saw Joe Biden also following the same traditions. And as the importance of the Indian community, Indian diaspora in US has grown to quite high levels now, it has become quite an essential celebration there, as well as many states are now announcing public holidays on the occasion of Diwali. It's a recognition of the contributions that the Indian community, the Indian diaspora has given as far as US's rise is concerned in recent decades, especially when the tech revolution has taken place and the Silicon Valley has largely relied on the kind of talent that has been produced in the Indian universities, Indian colleges, who have immensely contributed to the rise of the US as a technological giant in the world.
Okay, so President Trump lighting a traditional brass 5-wick lamp in front of the Resolute desk in the Oval Office and praising Prime Minister Modi, calling him a great person and a great friend. What should we read into it this time?
Well, it clearly seems, at least in the last few messages that have come from the White House, is that an off-ramp is being sought by the US. The kind of tariff war that has been escalated in the recent months, especially by US President Donald Trump, the claims that US has been making as far as Operation Sindoor is concerned, had taken the ties between the two countries to, especially in the recent months, to quite a new lows. And now it seems that US, after announcing those tariffs and acting on the H-1B visa, as well as making all of those claims, has now realized, or rather is coming to a realization that the importance of India is immense, and India as a country, especially in Indo-Pacific region, is irreplaceable. They cannot, it's be it essential services in the US, the tech industry, other kind of industries there, the trade that takes place between the two countries, the rise of India as an economic powerhouse in the world, all have made the Trump administration also to realize the importance of the Indian community as well as India as an ally.
Okay. We leave it here. Thank you very much, Akshay Dongre, for joining us on DD India News Hour. Still to come on the show. US government shutdown hits 21-day mark with no end in sight. Colombian President Gustavo Petro urges the world to defend Colombia against what he calls aggressions.
Indian industries are facing pressure because of President Trump's tariff threats.
Even tariffs are part of the story, actually. If you were to look at the whole story of the deindustrialization of India, it began in many ways under the British rule. They say, oh, it's not our fault. India fell behind because you missed the bus for the Industrial Revolution. My answer is we missed the bus is because you threw us under its wheels.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I am Tanvi Taneja. So as we were speaking earlier about Russia's conflict with Ukraine that has been going on for almost 4 years now, and any attempt to end it has been futile so far. Now, as US President Trump had been planning another meeting with Russia's Vladimir Putin in Budapest, the European Union is trying to strengthen Ukraine's position. The meeting in Budapest has just been cancelled, but the EU's action stands. Lars Holte is with Deutsche Welle and joins me from Berlin now on the European perspective. Lars, what can you tell us about how Europe looks at the recent developments?
Thanks for having me. Well, with shock mostly. For a few weeks, many in Europe had been under the impression that Donald Trump had come around to support Ukraine. After all, he had made several harsh statements about Putin. He said he was running out of patience, and he even said that he thought Ukraine could eventually win the war. But now, in recent days, Trump had this much discussed phone call with Moscow, after which he decided that not only would he hold off on military support for Ukraine, but also that he would suggest to end the war at current battle lines, pretty much forcing Ukraine to cede much of its territory. And not just any territory, for that matter. The Donbas region that Putin wants is rich in resources and important to the future of Ukraine and its economy. Anyway, Europe was also concerned with Trump planning on meeting Putin in Budapest, Hungary being a member country of the EU, but under its leader Viktor Orban, definitely much more on Russia's side than Ukraine's. It seems to be a good thing that the meeting is off for now, but no one here really thinks that we're going into the right direction right now.
Okay, Lars, so what is the EU going to do to steer the things right way?
They're putting together yet another package of sanctions against Russia, economic sanctions that are intended to weaken Russia and thus strengthen Ukraine's position. Here's some of the ideas. First of all, Russian oil and gas will finally be entirely banned in the EU. Well, starting January of 2028. And that sounds crazy, I know. But the EU is saying any oil and gas that some countries, even within the EU, are currently still receiving, they're receiving that based on old contracts. Currently, EU countries are still getting 13% of their supply from Russia. Again, that is about to end. The EU also wants to fight Russia's shadow fleet of tankers, have increased international checks and stop them from delivering to countries outside the bloc as well. And then there's another big one. The EU currently sits on billions of euros worth of Russian funds, technically owned by the Russian central bank. That money is sitting in Belgium, and the EU wants to use it to back a multi-billion rescue plan for Ukraine, with that money covering weapon and ammunition purchases, as well as fixing up the country once the war is over. The EU says it wants to put enough pressure on Moscow now, whether that meeting is happening now or at a later point, so that whenever the sides come together again, that Putin would be forced to recalculate his position.
Okay, thank you very much, Lars Holter, for all those updates. Lars Holter joining us from DW Berlin. More from Europe. The Office for National Statistics reported on Wednesday that Britain's inflation rate held at 3.8% in September, above the Bank of England's 2% target. The unchanged Consumer Prices Index, defying a predicted rise to 4%, keeps pressure on the Labour government ahead of its October 30th budget. Finance Minister Rachel Reeves, disappointed, signalled a potential tax hike to address soaring deficit over September's 5-year borrowing high. Lower food, recreation and airfare costs curbed inflation, but persistent services inflation at 5% dimmed rate cut hopes. Economists expect the Bank of England to hold rates at 5.25% on November 7th, with only a 70% chance of a December cut. On to South America now. Former Colombian President Alvaro Uribe welcomed on Tuesday a court decision that overturned his conviction for fraud and bribery in a long-running witness tampering case. The Bogota Superior Court struck down the verdict on Tuesday, ending a 13-year legal battle that has deeply polarized Colombia. Uribe, 73, who led the nation from 2002 to 2010, had made history in August as the first ex-president ever convicted in the country. His defense appeal arguing serious legal flaws and biased assessments. With the ruling, Uribe's house arrest order is also revoked, a major victory for the influential leader.
The only thing I can tell you is that I have told the truth to my fellow citizens throughout my long public life.
Senator Ivan Cepeda, who has been involved in the proceedings, stated that he would appeal the decision, which could potentially take the case to Colombia's Supreme Court.
With complete peace of mind and also with the democratic spirit that characterizes us, because the different decisions, some in favor and other against, such as the one presented today, which we respect as a decision of justice, but which we undoubtedly disagree with. This is the second aspect of what we want to say. In the majority decisions of this court, we note first of all an absence of evidentiary assessment of the legally relevant facts.
On the international front, Colombian President Gustavo Petro on Tuesday called for international support amid what he described as aggression against his country. The comment comes after US President Donald Trump called Petro an illegal drug leader, which Petro's government described as offensive, marking a new low in fraught relations between Bogota and Washington. Trump also announced plans to raise tariffs on the South American nation and halt all payments to it. During the meeting in Bogota, Petro highlighted the United Nations acknowledgement of errors in its system for measuring potential cocaine production in the country, which had sparked criticism of Colombia's efforts to combat drug trafficking.
The United Nations has already acknowledged its mistake in a public statement. They did not tell Trump that the same organization that made this report, the United Nations, admitted it was wrong and are trying to stain Colombia's reputation only because they want to continue dropping missiles in the Caribbean and want to invade Venezuela.
US Vice President J.D. Vance voiced great optimism of the US-brokered Gaza ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, saying its success will depend on constant monitoring and supervision. Speaking at the Civilian Military Coordination Center, where US troops oversee the truce, Vance praised Israel's cooperation and urged patience as officials work to locate the missing hostages.
We know that Hamas has to comply with the deal, and if Hamas doesn't comply with the deal, very bad things are going to happen. But I'm not going to do what the President of the United States has thus far refused to do, which is put an explicit deadline on it, because a lot of this stuff is difficult.
Joined by Trump's envoy Steve Witkoff and Jay Kushner, Vance emphasized that Washington has set no deadline for Hamas's disarmament, calling it a difficult process.
We know that Hamas has to comply with the deal, and if Hamas doesn't comply with the deal, very bad things are going to happen. But I'm not going to do what the President of the United States has thus far refused to do, which is put an explicit deadline on it, because a lot of this stuff is difficult.
Israel's military confirmed on Wednesday that the remains of 2 more hostages returned the day before have been identified as 85-year-old Aryeh Zalmanovich and Master Sergeant Tamir Adar. According to the army, Zalmanovich was abducted from his home in Kibbutz Nir Oz during October 7, 2023 attacks and later killed in captivity on November 17th that year. Adar, aged 38, was killed while defending the same kibbutz on October 7th, and his body was taken captive. The identification of their remains forms part of the ongoing process under the ceasefire deal aimed at recovering living and deceased hostages held by Hamas since the start of this crisis. After 2 years of Hamas captivity in Gaza, freed Israeli hostage Avinathan Or returned on Tuesday to his home in the Jewish settlement of Shiloh in West Bank. He was welcomed by cheering crowds, waving Israeli flags. A convoy of cars and motorcycles escorted Or's van as he smiled, waved and thanked Israelis and the army for bringing him home. The settlers lined the streets, clapping and singing as Or made heart and victory gestures from the window. Later, while addressing the crowd, he said that he was grateful to feel all the love from the people. Police escorted Or through the settlement in a golf cart, and as celebrations continued, Or got off the cart and danced with the crowd. Syria is on the verge of a major economic change as it anticipates a possible easing of US sanctions, according to Economy Minister Mohammed Nidal Al-Shar. Speaking in London, Al-Shar expressed hope that a related bill would soon reach US President Trump for potential approval. This will help stabilize its struggling currency. Syria is preparing to issue new banknotes early next year, which will remove 2 zeros from the current denominations. This measure is intended to boost the Syrian pound's purchasing power, which has sharply declined due to years of conflict. Reconstruction remains a massive hurdle, with the World Bank estimating the cost at $216 billion. Al-Shar emphasized that the actual expenses could be even higher, especially when factoring in the modernization of infrastructure. Meanwhile, Syria is working on restructuring its debt to ease the financial burden. And next we take a look at other stories making news around the world. Thousands of people have started visiting the world-famous Triveni Sangam, a wetland in Prayagraj, to witness the arrival of Siberian migratory birds, a sure sign that the cold season has begun. The large flock of migratory birds has added vibrancy to Sangam, drawing the attention of both locals and tourists alike. Portugal opened its 1833-built Prasar Cemetery in Lisbon to the public on Wednesday, offering guided night tours by torchlight for the 4th consecutive year to highlight the rich architectural and historical heritage of the country's resting places. Wild hot winds swept across southeast Australia on October 22nd, pushing spring temperatures to record highs. Sydney's central business district hit 37 degrees Celsius, while Bankstown neared 40 degrees Celsius, breaking October records. The heat wave was caused by hot air moving from the outback. Despite cloudy skies, crowds flocked to Bondi Beach. In Ilorin, Nigeria, Ahmed Iyabo continues a 35-year-old tradition of making cheese from fresh cow's milk using natural methods. Her cheese is popular with locals and travelers. While demand remains strong in Kawara, urban areas like Yo prefer imported mozzarella for pizzas. Despite challenges in milk supply, local vendors report steady sales, with cheese still staple in many Nigerian homes. Still to come on DD India News Hour. Heavy rain alert for India's southern states. All schools and colleges closed in Puducherry and Karaikal due to the red alert. The recent reduction in goods and services tax gives a boost to Ladakh's handicrafts and farming sectors.
Jharkhand will mesmerize you with majestic nature, rich heritage and colorful culture.
Hello. Johar. It fits perfectly.
Thank you.
Full workout ho gaya.
Ready?
Postcards from Jharkhand on National Geographic.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I am Tanvi Taneja. Here are our top stories. Planned summit between Trump and Putin put on hold after Russia rejects ceasefire. Trump says don't want to have a wasted meeting. Japan's first woman prime minister prepares large economic stimulus to tackle inflation. Work like a horse. Sanae Takaichi rejects work-life balance in her first speech. And a major bus tragedy in Uganda as two buses collide on the Kampala-Gulu highway on Wednesday. 63 people killed, several others injured. More news from the US. As the government shutdown there stretches into its fourth week, tensions between Democrats and Republicans are hardening, with both sides blaming each other for the growing crisis affecting federal workers and public programs. Republicans urged Democrats to reopen the government first, and Democrats demanded action to fix the ACA crisis before ending the stalemate. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump said that he will not meet with Democratic congressional leaders unless the ongoing government shutdown ends.
They're not negotiating. What they're doing is saying they lost the negotiation when we got the great big beautiful deal done. They lost that negotiation. Now they're saying, well, we want to get some of the things we lost. But the problem is the things they lost are very bad for our country. We don't want to have people come over from all over the world, from prisons and all, and have them have their health care paid for. We want to take care of people that are American citizens and all.
Now, President Donald Trump on Tuesday responded to a report that he is seeking $230 million from the Justice Department for legal costs tied to federal investigations against him. Trump tried to overturn his 2020 election loss to former President Joe Biden based on his false claims about voter fraud. Trump has filed 2 administrative claims seeking damages for alleged violations of his rights. Responding to the report, Trump said he is not involved in the request but would donate any money awarded to charity.
It's a lot of money, and I don't, as you know, I didn't take it in the first 4 years. I'm not taking it in these 4 years either. But as far as all of the litigation and everything that's been involved, yeah, they probably owe me a lot of money. But if I get money from our country, I'll do something nice with it, like give it to charity or give it to the White House while we restore the White House.
Further, U.S. federal agents carried out a joint immigration and customs enforcement ICE crackdown in New York City's Chinatown neighborhood. A spokesperson for Homeland Security said ICE and its federal partners conducted a targeted, intelligence-driven enforcement operation focused on criminal activity relating to selling counterfeit goods. The New York Police Department said that they had no involvement in the operation. Protesters gathered in Manhattan on Tuesday following the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement operation. A line of police blocked demonstrators who were demanding the release of migrants detained during the raid in Lower Manhattan. In response to the protests, senior administration officials from the City Hall went to the scene to monitor the ongoing situation. US President Donald Trump is heading to Japan next week from October 27th to 29th for talks with Japan's new and first woman Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi. Trade, investment and security are expected to dominate the agenda as the two leaders will meet in Tokyo next week. But what's also in the news is Sanae Takaichi's aggressive plans to increase productivity, even shunning in the process work-life balance. DD India's Abhimanyu reports.
Japan's new Prime Minister, Sanae Takaichi, is preparing for a first major diplomatic meeting with US President Donald Trump during his visit to Tokyo early next week. Her government is finalizing a significant purchase package to present to Trump, including American-made Ford F-150 pickup trucks, more US soybeans, and increased imports of liquefied natural gas. The soybean deal aims to support US farmers struggling with Chinese import restrictions. Currently, US soybeans make up about 70% of Japan's consumption. The package builds on previous $550 billion investment in US by Japan. The pact brokered by Takaichi's predecessor, Shigeru Ishiba. The pact aimed at securing lower auto tariffs. On the defense front, while Washington is pressing Japan and other allies to boost military spending, Takaichi will not likely commit to a new defense spending target at this meeting. Following the meeting in Tokyo, Trump and Takaichi are expected to travel together to Malaysia for the ASEAN summit and later to South Korea for the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation meeting. As Takaichi begins her tenure, she has an uphill task to build a strong Japan. She is preparing an economic stimulus package that is likely to exceed last year's $92 billion to help households tackle inflation. The package will also include investments in growth sectors such as artificial intelligence and semiconductors as the government focuses on strategic economic development. Takaichi, known as an advocate of expansionary fiscal and monetary policy, promised to work tirelessly to restore Japan's economic might, even shunning work-life balance in the process.
I will keep my promises. We cannot rebuild unless we mobilize the full strength of every generation. You will work like draft horses. I myself will throw away the very phrase work-life balance. I will work and work and work and keep on working.
Takaichi has been unapologetically blunt. The 64-year-old conservative politician says her goal is to become the Iron Lady, much like UK's former Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. Abhimanyu Pawar's report for DD India.
Great ambitions there for Sanae Takaichi, shunning work-life balance. Moving on now, amid an escalating tariff war with Beijing, US President Donald Trump on Tuesday said he wants to be nice to China, but claimed that the country has been very rough with the United States over the years because America never had smart presidents from a business point of view. Trump made the remarks while responding to a question on whether Washington would impose tariffs on China for buying crude oil from Russia.
I have a great relationship with President Xi. I expect to be able to make a good deal with him, and he'll make a good. I want him to make a good deal for China, but it's got to be fair. For years, they were making $500, $600, $700 billion, $700 billion, and we'd be making nothing. It was a one-sided. We built their military. We built China's military with the money that we lost for so many years, getting ripped off. So now we're going to have a fair deal. I think we're going to have a very successful meeting. Certainly there are a lot of people that are waiting for it.
Sad news coming from Uganda. A tragic road accident in Uganda killed 63 people after two buses collided head-on early Wednesday. The crash happened just after midnight on the Kampala-Gulu highway during an overtaking attempt, according to the police. All passengers on both buses died and several others were injured. Authorities are investigating the cause of the accident. Emergency teams responded quickly to assist survivors and clear the wreckage. This is one of the deadliest road accidents in Uganda in recent years. Next news from India. The recent reduction in goods and services tax from 12 to 5% on a wide range of local products and services is set to bring significant relief to artisans, farmers and small businesses. Our next story is where the handicraftsmen, artisans are benefiting from the GST reduction across Ladakh. The GST reduction across multiple products and services will stimulate the economy by lowering costs for producers and consumers alike. This move supports artisans, farmers, small businesses, enhancing their competitiveness, encouraging local entrepreneurship and driving sustainable growth. Pashmina wool produced by over 10,000 nomadic herders in Changtang will become more competitive against imports. Hand-woven woolens, Namda rugs and wool from Leh and Kargil will see reduced production costs, benefiting local artisans. Traditional handicrafts like Ladakhi carpentry and Thangka paintings from monasteries in Leh, Alchi and Hemis will be more affordable, supporting craftsmen and preserving Buddhist and local culture. Agriculture products are also benefiting, with over 6,000 families growing apricots alongside sea buckthorn berries, yak cheese and organic farm products. Women-led groups in Nubra and Changtang processing sea buckthorn will gain better market access. These reforms are boosting livelihoods, cultural preservation and sustainable economic growth across Ladakh. President of India Draupadi Murmu visited Sabrimala Hill Shrine in Kerala. At the Pampa base, she performed the preparatory rituals in Pampa River and the Ganapati temple, then proceeded to Hill Shrine temple to have darshan of Lord Ayyappa. Draupadi Murmu becomes the first Indian president in the last 5 decades to visit the Sabrimala Hill Shrine. It was the second day of her visit in Kerala today. Preparations are underway for the Pushkar Camel Fair, also known as Pushkar Cattle Fair or simply Pushkar Mela. The sandy dunes deserted throughout the year are beginning to come alive from 30th October to 5th November. It is a colourful and vibrant display of unique exhibitions, exciting competitions and fascinating events. This fair is renowned for being one of the world's largest cattle fairs. This year, the Pushkar Fair will be presented in several new ways. For the first time, a camel and horse show will be organized. The camel show with the BSF personnel showcasing the camels will be a highlight. A major attraction at the fair this year will be Mr. and Miss Rajasthan competition, which is being held for the first time. The Bollywood night at the fair will feature the singing duo Roop Kumar Rathore and Sonali Rathore. For convenience of the animal herders, an online plot booking system has been introduced this year. Preparations are also underway to give special recognition to folk culture by providing a platform for local artists, folk dances and Rajasthani singing. And more on the diverse culture of India. Prime Minister Narendra Modi extended greetings on Gujarati New Year. On social media platform X, Prime Minister Modi said, and I quote him here, "New Year greetings. May the new year beginning today bring happiness, peace, prosperity and joy into all of our lives. Heartfelt wishes. May the hardworking people of this fertile land of Gujarat and its rich culture become even more vibrant. That is the prayer from the bottom of my heart. Heartfelt New Year greetings." Unquote. The Indian Navy is holding the second edition of its biannual Commanders Conference 2025 in New Delhi from October 22nd to 24th. This high-level meet comes in the wake of Operation Sindoor and the Navy's heightened operational tempo, underlining its focus on combat preparedness, interoperability and joint operations with the Indian Army, Air Force and Coast Guard. The conference brings together Navy's top leadership to assess combat readiness, strategic planning and coordination across services, especially in the Indian Ocean region and the Indo-Pacific. Discussions are focusing on advancing maritime security, leveraging emerging technologies like AI, big data and machine learning, and strengthening indigenization under the Make in India program. The Navy's role under Mahasagar, that is mutual and holistic advancement for security across all regions, will also be reviewed as India aims to position its Navy as the preferred security partner in the region. The conference is poised to shape the Navy's future roadmap in an evolving geostrategic landscape. $7,800 special trains are being run by Indian Railways to handle the festival rush and help passengers travel smoothly. Union Minister for Railways, Ashwini Vaishnav, conducted an on-ground assessment of the arrangements during this festive season at the New Delhi railway station on Tuesday. Ashwini Vaishnav said that more than 1 crore passengers have already been served by these special trains. To manage the rush, a dedicated war room has been set up at the Rail Bhavan along with monitoring centres in all zones and divisions. They are tracking passenger movement in real time to ensure smooth travel. Indian Railways is adding a human touch during the festival rush by setting up dedicated waiting areas, extra ticket counters, including MUTS, clean washrooms and drinking water facilities for passengers. And on to the weather front now. The Andaman and Nicobar Islands in the eastern parts of the country may witness So on the weather front, I apologize for the delay. The Andaman and Nicobar Islands in the eastern parts of the country may witness light to moderate rains and isolated heavy downpours until 27th of October, with IMD predicting gusty winds in the region. Thunderstorms and lightning across states like Odisha, Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh will be through this Friday. And let's head for a very short break here in the bulletin. More news on the other side. Stay with us.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome to Mahabalipuram, a coastal town full of delight, where history, art and natural beauty unite. Explore this sacred ground where spirituality and divinity are closely.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I am Tanvi Taneja. More on the weather front from the southern region of India. Tamil Nadu remains to be the mostly affected with heavy downpour. Widespread rains lashed Chennai and other parts of Tamil Nadu on Tuesday, and heavy rains are likely to occur in isolated places. Chennai's iconic Marina Beach is facing rough seas and strong winds, which are expected to continue. Authorities have urged coastal residents and fishermen to be vigilant as the state remains on red alert. All schools in Chennai will remain closed today. Several schools and colleges will remain closed in several other Tamil Nadu districts, including Villupuram, Ranipet, as well as the Union Territory of Puducherry. And on to some sporting action now on DD India News. Indian Football Club FC Goa will host Saudi Pro League giants Al Nassr FC in the third AFC Champions League 2 Group D match in Fatorda on Wednesday. The FC Goa versus AI Nasr FC match will start at 7:15 p.m. Indian Standard Time in Fatorda. Cristiano Ronaldo has not travelled to India. However, Al Nassr still boasts a star-studded lineup capable of dictating proceedings. Portuguese forward João Felix, fresh from a hat-trick against Al Fateh in the Saudi Pro League, is expected to spearhead the attack alongside Senegalese ace Sadio Mane. For the home side, Indian centre-back Sandesh Jhingan will shoulder the responsibility of keeping Al Nassr's high-profile attack at bay. Fermin Lopez scored a hat-trick and Marcus Rashford added 2 goals as Barcelona crushed Olympiacos 6-1 in the Champions League on Tuesday. Lopez's hat-trick was the first of his career and the first by a Spaniard for Barcelona in the competition. Lamine Yamal also scored from the penalty spot. Barcelona dominated after Olympiacos went down to 10 men. Santiago Heze was shown a second yellow card in the 57th minute, though replay suggested that he barely touched Marc Casado. Just 3 minutes earlier, Olympiacos had reduced the deficit to 1 through Ayoub Al-Kabi's penalty. After the red card, Barcelona took full control and scored 4 more goals to complete the rout. Erling Haaland continued his superb goal-scoring streak as Manchester City claimed a comfortable 2-0 win at Villarreal in Champions League on Tuesday. Pep Guardiola's side stayed unbeaten in the league phase with their victory against El Submarino. The citizens scored in the first half with goals from Haaland and then Bernardo Silva. Norwegian target man Haaland has now found the net in each of his last 12 games for club and country, racking up 22 goals in those fixtures. Guardiola rested Phil Foden among 4 changes to his starting lineup from the win against Everton at the weekend as City ended a year-long winless run on the road in Europe. Govardhan Puja 2025, also known as Annakut Puja, is being celebrated with devotion and joy today across India. Govardhan Puja is observed on Pratipada Tithi of Shukla Paksh in the month of Kartik in the Hindu calendar. The festival marks the divine acts of Lord Krishna, lifting the Govardhan hill to protect the people of Vrindavan from Lord Indra's wrath. On this day, devotees offer prayers, light diyas and prepare a mountain of food known as Annakut Bhog to seek Lord Krishna's blessings for prosperity, health and happiness. That's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. Connect with us on our different social media handles at DD India Live. And you can also download our DD India mobile app for quick news and updates on the go. So we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja from all of us here in New Delhi. Thank you for watching. Namaskar.